In this video, we're going to be taking a look at a sample body paragraph on Through the Tunnel by Doris Lessing. This paragraph is also going to be a brief lecture on the nature of setting in this story, running through some central examples and the approach to analyzing setting that we are going to use in this course. We've already introduced the concept of setting using such stories as The Spider's Thread by Rinosuke Kotogawa. However, this essay, or this sample essay, takes what we've done with respect to quotation analysis and integration, and then builds on it by developing the analysis of setting. So, remember the basic structure for a body paragraph. Overall, everything in this course has been oriented around the proving or the development, the identification of arguments. With a body paragraph, your point, or the purpose of a body paragraph, is to construct an argument to support your thesis. It's almost like the body paragraph presents and then develops and supports a, supporting argument using several different points that helps you to prove the main argument in your thesis. You can think of the body paragraph as an elaboration on a supporting point, an elaboration on a supporting argument, or the development of some specific aspect of the story that helps you to prove the argument in your thesis. So, the components of a body paragraph. You start out with your topic sentence where you lay out your argument, and then you have a series of points. You build the argument in your paragraph point by point, example by example. So, you have a topic sentence argument, a claim, or something that you want to prove for point one. You provide evidence for that point, and then you analyze the evidence that you presented, explaining it and interpreting it. You never repeat the evidence, you never repeat what's stated directly in the quotation, but you do want to use that quotation to show how the story's example or that quotation conveys the claim or proves the claim that you're trying to make. With respect to this body paragraph analyzing setting in Through the Tunnel, our topic sentence lays out a concrete, cohesive argument. The two beaches represent the painful but rewarding transition between childhood and adulthood. In the context of a full essay, obviously you would already have established that the story you're discussing is Doris Lessing's Through the Tunnel. So you don't need to mention it in the topic sentence here. If all you were writing for me was a body paragraph, obviously I would need to know the title of the story and the author, but you've already established that, so you don't necessarily need to tell me what story these two beaches appear in. I already know that from what you've written in the introduction. Then I move into a kind of claim or some evidence to help me develop a claim. Examining the two paths before him at the outset of the story, the young English boy, Jerry, shifts his gaze between a wild and rocky bay and the familiar beach that he knew so well from other years. So, things to note. I have an introduction to the quotation where I indicate to the reader what is occurring at this moment. Where do these quotations appear in the context of the story? Now that can be a little bit more general, like at the outset of the story, or more specific, as I have here, examining the two paths before him. So I'm referencing a specific moment that somebody can appeal to and look back to at the outset of the story, rather than offering just the general at the outset of the story. Now, I also integrate my quotations. I have my integrated quotations here about the young English boy and a wild and rocky bay, and also the familiar beach that he knew so well. So already I'm setting up, in this example, the two beaches. The quotations themselves are integrated properly. I have chosen one of those four methods of quotation integration that we've discussed. I've taken small excerpts from the text and then peppered them into my own sentence. One of the benefits of doing that is that I can highlight the specific aspects of the quotation that I want to analyze. I've already indicated to my reader what it is that I want to focus on in that quotation because that's all I've provided. Remember, as you're providing quotations, try to take as little of the quotation as you need to prove your argument. You need to have a grammatically correct sentence, grammatically complete sentence, but take as little as you need to develop and prove your point. Now I analyze that point. The familiar beach offers ease, safety, and comfort that he already knows so well. And because he reaches it while walking with his mother, who can care for him and keep him safe, it represents the simple and easy security of childhood. So I've just analyzed this combination of short quotations, putting them all together so that I can interpret the setting. The description of the setting is already provided for me in the quotation, but I take those quotations, I take that description, and then start unpacking it, the feelings that are created by it, what's implied by the description of the setting. Right? It's a familiar beach that he knew so well, and he's going there with his mother while being described as a young boy. So the way in which the setting is framed, the kinds of characters that enter into that beach, the nature of the beach as this place of safety and protection because he is with his mother, All of these things together show us that the beach is meant to represent childhood or infancy. Now, I have that analysis, I move into the next claim, the next point that can help me prove that the two beaches represent the painful but rewarding transition between childhood and adulthood. In this first point, I've proven that the safe beach represents childhood. Now, I'm going to build on that idea to develop this argument point by point. From this argument here, I know that really I have about 3 points I need to prove. I need to show first that the safe beach represents childhood, second that the dangerous wild beach represents adulthood, and then I have to show that the story is implying that the movement between the two, the foregoing of the safe beach, is in fact positive. It's a rewarding transition, even if it's painful. So it seems like I have these 3 points that I want to prove using examples from the text. Moving on to this next point that I've proven, since I've already shown that, well, through this one example, the safe beach represents childhood, I'm going to re-emphasize that point. Jerry's reaction on seeing his mother leaving behind confirms the infantile nature of the safe beach. There's my claim. Now, it builds off this previous point that I've mentioned. It leads or follows naturally, logically from it, because, well, I've already said it represents the easy security of childhood, so Jerry's reaction on seeing his mother leaving behind confirms the infantile nature of the safe beach. When I'm saying it confirms it, well, I'm pointing back to what I've already said. That first example I gave you implies that the beach represents childhood. Here, this next example confirms it. Now I have to provide evidence for that claim that, well, Jerry's reaction actually confirms the nature of the safe beach as representing childhood. Jerry almost runs after her, finding it unbearable that she should go by herself to the safe beach. The desire to cling to his mother out of a fear that she should go by herself defines the entire realm of the little bay as childish because an immature impulse nearly convinced him to travel there. So what I've done is I've appealed back to, in my analysis, something literal in the quotation. I'm analyzing and I'm interpreting. I'm not restating the quotation, but I am looking back at the quotation and referencing something specific inside of it. This idea of her going by herself and how that frames the little bay. Now, it might seem like I'm discussing characterization here because I'm talking about Jerry, but what I'm actually doing is saying what his motivations in this moment and what the feelings that are expressed through this quotation say about the setting of that beach. So I'm using his character and using his reactions to show that, well, children and people with infantile motives go to that safe beach. In this first section of the paragraph, I've proven my first point that, well, the safe beach represents childhood. Now I need to prove 2 other things. In the next point, as I transition to it, I need to prove that the rough and wild beach represents adulthood. And then I need to show that the transition between them is difficult and painful, but rewarding, using setting. So now I transition into the next example. On the other hand, the wild yet attractive beach promises new experiences and unknown dangers alike, framing it as a representation of adulthood. So there's my claim. I have a transition by connecting back to the idea. I'm saying, in contrast to what I've just said, here, this new dangerous wild beach represents adulthood. Now I need to provide an integrated and introduced quotation to support this claim. At this beach, Jerry encounters the big boys, men to him, in the waters beyond the wild-looking beach. Now I need to analyze this example that I've given. How does that prove that the beach, the wild beach, represents adulthood? It is defined as a place that attracts and is suited for men. I don't need much more than that. I've leveraged the power of the quotations that I've provided, the very specific examples I've provided. It's a place for men. It's a place for big boys. So thus, it is defined as a place that attracts and is suited for men. It's a place that is adulthood itself. Now, I need to show that, well, point 3, the transition between this, childish beach to the masculine adult beach, or the transition from childhood to adulthood, is in fact fulfilling, even though it's dangerous. So I've proven 2 points in this paragraph. Now I'm moving into the third, logically, smoothly making transitions as I go along and moving through that concrete, necessary process. Here's what I'm trying to prove. Here's how I prove it, or here's the example, and here's how the example proves that claim. All of it tying back into that core argument that I'm making in the topic sentence. So there, elements of the environment, suggestive of all the myriad wonders and dangers of adult life, rise up to confront Jerry. So now I'm saying that the setting of the beach shows that adulthood is wonderful, but also dangerous. So if it's wonderful but dangerous, then the transition from childhood to adulthood is dangerous but wonderful, right? Reaching the beach, he sees the beautiful, luminous movement of water over white sand before he heads out into the surf past a middle region where rocks lie like discolored monsters under the surface. So how is the setting described there? It's described as something beautiful, the luminous movement of water over white sand. It's beautiful and pure, resplendent. Right? It's like the light itself is being produced by the white sands on the beaches and underneath the waters, the clear crystal waters. However, there are also these dangerous, threatening rocks that jut out of the surface of the bottom of the ocean floor. So my interpretation of these examples, beauty and terror alike define this mature space. That's all I really need. Right? I've shown that adulthood is thus a place of terror and beauty based on how the setting is described. Now I move into the next example. Finally, he reaches the real sea, a warm sea where irregular cold currents form from the deep waters shock his limbs. Unlike the calm waters that are accessible from the shore that Jerry frequented with his mother, this beach and its real sea is, like adulthood, wild and potentially dangerous, yet filled with pleasures, here represented by its warmths and beauties that neither the young English boy nor his mother could imagine. So I'm looking back at that quotation, and I see the setting of the water is described as being shockingly cold, dangerous, chilling, but the sea itself is warm. So it's fraught, it's ambiguous, it's both wonderful, warm, and also terrible with these shocking cold moments of danger. So altogether, what I've gone through here is the development of an argument, step by step, point by point. I've looked at what I have to prove using that topic sentence. When I go all the way back, these two beaches represent the painful but rewarding transition between childhood and adulthood. When I had that idea, I have to follow through the argument very carefully, thinking about what I need to prove step by step, what examples I can use, and how I can interpret those examples to prove point by point, step by step, the argument I'm making here. It's just like those logical syllogisms that we talked about. You also have access to this document for you to review and a breakdown of a color-coded version of this body paragraph that shows you the components, basically, the purposes of individual sentences, whether they be the topic sentence, the statement of the main idea, the introduction to quotations, the presentation of examples, and the analysis of examples and transitions. So, all together with these other literary devices that we've discussed, Jerry's characterization and what he learns, and the allegorical nature of being reborn by passing through the tunnel, reborn weak and helpless like a newborn babe, but entering into a positive new area of your life. All these things together, all these literary devices, point towards the same central theme. They all are used to comment on the same thing. Keep that in mind as you think about developing your own essays, because after all, you need to analyze different literary devices in the context of the short story that you're going to analyze or explore in order to prove your point.